And we're live. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us. My name is Warren Murray. I'm a brand director here at Mount Magic. I'm also a father of two. Today, we have a really great topic for all you moms and dads that you can join and take part in. Be sure to send in your questions. Be sure to send in your loves and your messages. I won't be hosting this live today, but I've got a phenomenal mom of three. If you know her, then you'll know how phenomenal she plays. She's super busy. She is Melanie Ramjee on social media. She is known as Hypress. She's also been notified as one of the top 200 women on Twitter to follow in Africa. So,
Wow!
hi Mel, how are you?
Hey! Thank you,
Very
everybody,
good.
for joining us again, and thank you, Warren, for having me. You know, I swear I would have thought the boys was trying to sabotage us if they wanted school. You know, kids they don't know anything about concentrating.
I think I saw Mark actually joined in, so I'm quite sure that people are behind the sabotage of that. It's also load shedding, so it's probably also affecting signals and cell phone towers all over the country. So that's that. I'm going to get out the way so you can get right into your conversation with today's expert, Lizette. And for those who haven't met or you've just joined us, I'm going to let Mel introduce herself, and then you'll get to meet our expert today and get to ask all your pertinent questions. Enjoy the live, guys.
Hi again, Lizette. Yay! Hi. Sorry for those who missed. Sorry for those who missed my last introduction of Lizette. Lizette is an expert in all things young child development. She's also the founder and the brains behind the super cool program called Practica program, which it helps around concentration and creating the foundation for kids and all the concentration skills for kids between 3 to 5. So I'm super honored to be chatting to you on the Baby and Me platforms today. And I'll leave it all up to you, Lizette. Thanks for joining us, and tell us a little bit more about your program and yourself. And we all here concentrating.
Yeah, well, I am also a mom and a grandmother. I have two daughters and to be four granddaughters. So we have a lot of daughters and we're very chatty in our house. But yeah, so this is truly a very exciting topic for me as a developer of the Practica program, because, you know, the thing is about concentration skills is that it has a huge impact on all of our lives, and not only in a child who's actively in school. And it's different to all the other kinds of skills that you can pin down or isolate. You know, you can talk about something like drawing skills or ball skills or scissor cutting skills, but concentration isn't something that can be isolated like that. Concentration is, in fact, to the mind what fitness is to the body. So when we refer to it, we can actually talk about mental fitness.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I think it's so interesting that developmental scientists actually have a different term for it. They refer to it as executive functioning skills or executive function. Okay. And that has to do with how we can concentrate and focus our skills and get things done. So it's relevant to all of us.
Wow. I'm a mom of three crazy kids. I've got a daughter who's 3 years old and two boys, one who's almost 10 and one who's 18. So it's quite loud in our house, but you mentioned girls are a bit chatty. We only have one who's chatty, and it's the girl who's 3 years old. This is a topic that's very close to my heart because I felt that I left my little boy a lot. I left him a lot to screen time, and I didn't really measure a lot of his milestones. And I think I want to do it. I think I want to do it better with my 3-year-old. So, are there any milestones that you, as me as a mom, can you give us some milestones that we can look out for? Just so you spoke about your child, about mental fitness. Is there any milestones that you can walk us through so we can know if our children are on par with mental fitness?
Now, they are basics, you know, the bare minimum. So a child that's about 1 year old will be able to focus actively on an activity where they're engaged in the activity. So they're actually playing a game with you for about a minute. When they're at their second birthday, you can expect the minimum concentration span to be about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. And when they're 2.5 years old, that'll be 5 minutes. And then when you get to the 3-year-old, where your little girl is at the moment, and also our audience, then at that age, you would want to expect of a child to be able to concentrate actively for 10 minutes. Now, obviously, this doesn't include watching television because the brain isn't actively involved and engaged in that experience. Then when they're 4 years old, you just add another 5 minutes. So that would bring it up to 15 minutes. And a 5-year-old should be able to concentrate for 20 minutes. Then when a child is 6 years old and they're about to go to school, they should be able to concentrate for 25 minutes, focused. And that's basically where it ends. So even in adults in general, the average of concentration span of adults would be 25 minutes that you can count on.
Sure. With all these Zoom calls that we're in, it seems a lot shorter these days. I think that's so interesting. I think, yeah. On a par with mental fitness. And Lizette has just given us some preview of how to test and the number of minutes that your child needs to pay attention and concentrate. So we're looking at a 3-year-old as an average of 10 minutes. And apparently the basic for adults as well is 25 minutes. So adults out there, make sure you're on par with your mental fitness. 25 minutes. That's the average for your age. Hi, Lizette. Welcome back. I was just explaining to people who've just joined us what exactly we were chatting about. And I have another question for you. I have, like I mentioned earlier, I've got a 9-year-old, almost 10-year-old who I'm always wondering about his concentration. But I mean, I want to get it right with my daughter. So parents out there like me who might be concerned about the child's ability to concentration, is there any tips you can give us or any advice you can give us if we are concerned about our child's concentration levels?
Can you hear me? Because it just died on my side again.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, good. Then I'll just keep on speaking. All right, so I think firstly we have to understand, since we're talking about mental fitness, a child's mental fitness develops very much in the same way as our physical fitness develops, with practice.
Sure.
So that's the first way that you can expect a child's mental fitness to develop, is by actually practicing it. So you would start with activities that are 5 minutes long and then build up to 10 minutes and then build up to 15 minutes. So you wouldn't start a 6-year-old who has difficulty concentrating with activities that are 25 minutes long, because that'll be demotivating for them. So it's a matter of training. But secondly, also obviously, they develop as a result of their brain wiring. So as children grow older, their brains naturally are wired at this age, when they're 3 to 5-year-olds, they don't develop more brain wiring. The brain is physically being pruned back. So they've got a lot of brain wiring already there, but they're not all hooked up. And then by the experiences that they have, the brain then knows which brain cell connections to retain and which ones are actually for their purposes, for this particular child's purposes, because it's not used, it's obsolete, it's not necessary. So the brain then prunes that back. So you want to make sure that you stimulate the entire brain as a whole, But that stimulation, before you even get to stimulation, you have to look at the bare basics, even with an athlete can't only focus on training. You have to focus on the basics. So the first thing would be to have adequate nutrition. And you would have
a balanced diet.
And all of that, you want to make sure that you have that in place. And just like the physical body needs certain nutrients for it to develop, the brain also needs certain specific nutrients, and some of that would then be the omega-3s and 6 and DHAs, those fish oil kind of things. And interestingly, that is something that is in the Nankid 4 the Nestle Nankid for Supreme drink that is available to parents, and it's very handy because it just makes it easy to get to these things, and since it's not something that our bodies, neither children or adults' bodies, can produce, it has to be, you know,
a supplement.
Drunk. Yeah. So then secondly, something that is really important that I think many parents don't understand is the importance of sleep. So sleep is important for two reasons. Firstly, because that is what consolidates memories. So whatever the child learns during the day is consolidated into the memory when they sleep. And secondly, when a child or an adult actually doesn't sleep enough, the sleep deprivation leads to an overstimulation of the emotional brain. So you can physically see on fMRI scans how the amygdala in the emotional brain is overactive when somebody hasn't slept enough. And that makes it very difficult for children to concentrate because they don't have a high resilience for frustration. It's not easy for them to, you know, to go from one activity to the next, or to change the perspective. If they're busy with something else and you want them to do something else, or you change the rules of a game, they just get totally overwhelmed. And that's when parents say, I don't get it, my child just falls apart for nothing. And it's often because they don't sleep enough. So the requirements for a 3 to 5 year old is actually a minimum of 10 hours a night.
Great.
And it could be as much, depending on the child, as much as 13. Now you can imagine practically what that would mean is that if a child has to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning to go, you know, to go to daycare, if you have to wake them at 7, and this happens to be a child that needs 13 hours of sleep, because you don't know before you test it, you have to like experiment with your child, then it might mean that that particular child will have to go to bed and sleep at 7 o'clock at night, and they need a nap, an hour nap on top of that, because that brings them to 12 hours. And then you still need the 1 hour nap as well. So I always feel that if you have to wake your child for them to go to preschool, if you have to wake them up in the morning, there's a very, it's very likely that they're not getting enough sleep.
Jeez.
So that's
so interesting.
Yeah. And then also, obviously, we want to make sure that that's the third thing. And then just like in physical development, we need to exercise our bodies. Similarly, in brain development, we have to make sure that we exercise all the different areas of the brain. So that's the basics in place.
Wow, that's so interesting. I have, I mean, my little one has 10 hours of sleep during the night, and that is like the most we can get out of her. So I put her to bed at 8 o'clock at night, and then she's fresh and bright in the morning, and then she has an additional hour at creche during the day. But yeah, I see my shortcomings. I need to put her to bed slightly earlier, which will be a fight. But it's great to know that 12 to 13 hours on average. Wow.
10. So the minimum is 10. The minimum is 10.
Minimum 10. So I'm good. I'm in the correct bracket, right?
Yeah. So yeah.
Thanks, Lizette. And then with regards to your program, I did a bit of research because I haven't really tried it myself. And you're very well known for your activities and your games and all of that fun stuff for parents to engage with their kids. And I like the fact that you don't even need toys to do some of the activities that you teach in your program. Could you share, for people who don't know and who haven't tried your program, including myself, are there any games that you can suggest to us to help our kids with concentration and getting them to concentrate? Just a few basics if we haven't tried your program yet.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think the practical program is handy because you have all these activities. There are literally thousands of activities, and they're divided in age-appropriate sections. So you know what to do at every age, and then you also know that you're developing all the different areas of development. So you're stimulating different combinations of brain regions working together. Because obviously, if you would concentrate playing tennis, you would use a different combinations of skills compared with, you would concentrate listening to a story or something like that. Cool. But I think just because the audience might obviously not be practical parents, I want to share things that you can do in general to stimulate your child's concentration. And the basic things that you need to remember is that researchers say that in little children, executive functions or concentration skills have three main ingredients. So there's three things that we have to add to our child's repertoire for them to get better and better and better at concentrating. And the first one is self-regulation or self-control. So anything that you do that helps your child not to just act impulsively, to wait their turn, to do something that they might not necessarily want to do, like sit still or, you know,
pick up your toys.
There you go. That's my favorite. Self-regulation or self-control. So secondly, the second ingredient to concentration would be working memory. And working memory is just a new term for short-term memory. That's being able to keep information in mind. Sometimes it would be in your mind's eye, or it would be in your mind's ear, so that you can work with it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to remember it the next day, but you can just remember it for long enough that you can work with it. So that's called working memory.
Okay.
And that would be remembering the rules of a game, or remembering what somebody just said, or when you're in a conversation and you're 5 minutes into the conversation, to remember what people said like 3 or 4 or 5 minutes ago, so that there's continuity to the experience. Okay.
Sure. Okay.
Then the third component of this would be to adapt to changing circumstances, and it's actually called mental flexibility. So the ability to adapt to not only the circumstances changing, but the demands that are now placed on you, to be able to adapt to that. So if an activity or a game stimulates 1, 2, or 3 of these major ingredients, you're working on your child's concentration skills by actually doing this activity. You know, something as simple as playing this game where the hide and seek, where one child would stand in the corner and count to 10 and say, ready or not, here I come. That's a simple little game. Just think about it. Firstly, self-control, because if you're the one counting, you have to do something. You have to count to 10, then you have to say your little rhyme. If you're one of the children hiding, then you have to be able to remember, you know, which places was already taken. That would be the working memory part.
But I see we have 14 people. Yay! We'll get back with us.
So I think the last that you heard was the part about the hide and seek game.
Yes, correct.
Okay, right. Well, okay, so let's leave that there. Let me just talk about other things that parents do that actually do develop concentration skills, just to pat us on the back and keep us going at it, because it's not always easy. And one of those would be to teach our children good manners. Interestingly enough, by teaching our children good manners, we're teaching them to concentrate, because they firstly have to develop self-control to do that. They have to have working memory, because they have to remember what they're supposed to do. And then they have to have mental flexibility, because they have to adapt to changing circumstances. Something like chores, you know, it's often much easier to just do something yourself, you know, than to involve a 3-year-old in washing the dishes. It's just so much easier to have somebody make the bed or make it yourself than have her try.
True.
But it develops concentration skills again, because it involves these 3 big ingredients: the self-control, working memory, and mental flexibility. You know, whenever you do something practical in real life, something can go wrong. And then you have to be mentally flexible to be able to adapt to it. So that also develops concentration skills. Another kind of game, other than educational games like what we do at Practica, that is very good for the development of concentration, is the kind of what they call cooperative play that you get in 3 to 6 year olds specifically. They love it, where they play together to play shop or pretend
housey.
There you go. Because you have to remember the roles. You're taking on one role, that involves self-regulation. You have to remember what everybody else has said as part of the game. So that's working memory again. And then you have to adapt to the changing circumstances, mental flexibility. I'm just repeating this again and again and again, because if this is something that parents can walk away with after this chat, that you know that these are the 3 ingredients, it's exciting and it's fun. And it's also motivating, you know, to realize that the reason why you're taking the time out to help your children to do things like this, and it's often not easy, but it's not only about socializing them, it's also about wiring their brains. This is all part of one big picture of child development. So I think that probably helps a little bit in that regard. So
awesome, thanks. So insightful. Thank you so much. I think we need to chat offline about possibly having a program for us older people, because we also have concentration issues. But this was very insightful. Thanks so much. I think because I'm so very interested in early childhood development, I was also recently on the Nankid's website, which I know you know a lot about, and you're very involved in it. And they have a lot of tips, similar tips and milestones available for parents to read about on early childhood development, and a lot of topics around that. How are you involved? Can you please tell us a little bit more about the site, more information about it?
Yeah, I think it's exciting because it's available, you know, 24/7, that's first, and it's available for free. So any parents with children before their 3rd birthday and their 6th birthday, so when they're 3, 4, 5-year-old, can sign up, and then you get monthly tips and information about milestones, not only about concentration, but all the different kinds of areas of development. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun, and because it's offered in bite sizes, it's really easy to implement, and you have enough time to actually do the little games and do the little activities, and it's inspiring because you can see the results of what you've been doing. I just would like to say where you need to go is this babyandme.nestle.coza. So that's the website. You go babyandme.nestle.coza. And then you just scroll down and proceed to where you can register for free, and then parents can receive this information. So that's very handy.
Also, can we learn more about your program, the Practica program, on the site? Is there any way you can direct us so we can find out more about your program?
I almost forgot about my own program. Sorry, thank you. You're such a kind person. Yeah, our program is on Practica. So it's www.practica. It's just like the word practical in English without the L. So it's just practica.coza. And yeah, it is also very exciting. I think the benefit of that is that it's integrated with a box of apparatus. So you don't just get activities, you actually get the stuff that you need to be able to play it with. So you can open up the box, take what you need, combine the different apparatus and play the games. Sometimes that's handy, especially nowadays, you know, when we're really busy and we don't have a lot of time to print and color things and cut them out and paste. It's easy to just have them at hand and use it.
Awesome. Thank you. So insightful. Are you on social media by any chance? Can anybody reach out to you? Do you want to give us your handles at all?
Yeah, well, on Facebook, we are on it's Practica program, like Afrikaans, Practica program, without the ME at the end. And we're also on Instagram, so that'll be nice if people could follow that. We'll really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. I have one more question before you go, which I've left for last, which is the most important question. I think I played preview to it earlier on with my son. He's almost 10. I really let him be on iPads and TVs a lot. At the time I was starting my business, and you know what, as a mom, it was just it was just so easy. I would just give him his iPad and he would go and play with his iPad. So we all know as parents, less screen time is better. And I think that brings into my last question, and we did mention it a bit, but we all know we have to limit our kids to screen time. We've gotten your opinion, but do you know what the World Health Organization has to say about screen time? Is there anything you can tell us a bit more about? And just, do you know the acceptable amounts kids should be on? Has there been a study? Is there anything you can tell us a little bit more about less screen time? Because this is something I battle with so much in my household, from my 3-year-old to my 10-year-old to even my 17-year-old who sits on the game all day.
Yeah. And I think firstly, let me just quickly say why, because it always helps to have conviction on why, you know. So what happens is that a child's brain is wired from the bottom up. So the bottom regions in the brain is better at processing information that are sensory. So visual information, the visual images, the auditory sounds, that is obviously what cartoons are all about. It's a lot of interesting sounds and awesome, interesting sounds and images.
Yeah.
The problem is that the upper parts of the brain aren't involved in little children. So that's why the World Health Organization actually, they advise strongly against exposing children to any kind of screen time within the first 2 years of life. The American Academy of Pediatrics are actually a little bit more lenient about it. They say that you can expose children to screen time from 18 months, but then it has to be done in the right way. Shouldn't be like really exciting kinds of images and sounds. It should be very serene, and you need to be there with your child and explain things with them, and it needs to be repeated, and no longer than 3 to 5 minutes, maybe 10 at the most, depending on whether you're looking at a lullaby maybe for 10 minutes, you know, that kind of thing. That is literally it.
That's
but the World Health Organization says no, parents will do it wrong. Let's just leave it. No TV or no screen time up to 2. That's what the World Health Organization say. And then from 2 to 6, they say 1 hour a day. Okay, that's it. All screen time combined. And the reason for that is because children physically need to develop the ability to actually form a concept of something for them to understand it. And to be able to do that, they have to first use their bodies to experience it. They have to smell it and taste it and feel it and touch it and interact with their bodies. Then they have to use their hands. That's the second level. And only then can they start to form mental pictures of something. So obviously, you know, when children engage with iPads and they do things, it looks like they understand what they're doing because they like touching things and going and from here and there engaging with it. But it's very similar as a child being able to count to 1 to 10 by rote. But if you ask them, if I give you 8 cookies or 5 cookies, which is more, then they don't know because they don't actually understand the concept. Similar. So it looks on face value as if children are interacting with understanding, but they don't understand it. They're just going through the motions. It's only from 6 years onwards that children can actually start to follow a storyline, you know, to understand that all these segments of information that they are getting aren't actually loose standing. They are actually telling a story. But just for your sake, maybe I can just also say that the World Health Organization then says for older children that you still have to restrict the screen time, but from there on you can use the child's individual makeup as your guideline. You know, just like some people are just generally more prone to become addicted to substances. Similarly, some children are more prone to become addicted to screens. So if it interferes with a child's physical interaction with people socially, or their sports participation, you know, how active they are physically, or the amount of to stop and be very, very clear about. You need to act as the parent.
Well, if you ever need a 3-year-old to do a study on, my daughter is readily available. I actually want to give her to a World Health Organization so they can do some tests on her. She seems to know more about the iPad than I do. But thank you so much, Lizette. That was so insightful. I do think we need a second catch-up at some point, maybe for the slightly older kids. But this was very insightful. Thank you so much. And for everybody who's just tuned in, we will put all Lizette's details at the bottom of in the caption of this post once we post it, so you can get all the information. But do check out the Practica program for anyone who has a kid between 3 to 6 years old, right? and
It's
wants
actually
to
from
help.
birth. Yeah. Yeah, so the
Okay, from
program, our
birth.
program is from birth up to 6.
Birth.
Yeah. Thank you so much for
Just
mentioning it. I
thank you
appreciate
so
it.
much. Yeah, and this would help you with setting out the foundations for your kids to concentrate better. And I think just living in the 21st century, it's just there's so much stimulus for our kids. I mean, just we keeping up is hard enough. So think of a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old that has to now figure it all out. It's so much more than we had to deal with back in the 1800s. Thanks, Lizette, for joining us, and thanks for sharing all your insights. It was very informative, and yeah, I think it's opened my eyes in a lot of ways. I didn't know kids should not be on screen time before 2 years old, and I'll try much better as a parent to make sure she only has an hour of combined screen time in a day. Thank you so much for your information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
How long was the chat? Well, it was difficult.